people please take their seats? Thank you all. Please do take your seats. So once again, this is a League of Women Voters sponsored forum. We don't have a debate for this, for the 37th Middlesex. So we have the same basic rules that we'll have a 30-second opening statement, a 1-minute closing statement, and 90 seconds to answer some questions. And you're very lucky that you can get into some detail with your representative as needed. So please write your questions down. And we're very grateful to ActonTV for videotaping our forum. It is streaming live on Facebook, and you can access it at any point. Also, Minutemen Media Network will be using this film as well. So let us begin. That we have State Representative Jim Benson. So welcome, and if you would care to go into your opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I have to thank the League for inviting me and letting me participate tonight, even though clearly I'm very lonely up here. And I know a lot of the audience has left, but I'm glad some of you have stayed because, quite frankly, to me, the coming years in this next session are going to be critically important. So I have had the honor of representing this district for 10 years. And many of you have seen my children grow up. My husband's here, Brent. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary, and this is our home. And it is a great honor to be able to represent my community members on Beacon Hill.
Thank you. All right, digging straight into the questions. Representative Benson, you are the co-chair of the Special Legislative Commission on Public Records. Would you please describe the charter for this commission and when the commission will release its report?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the second part of that question. Our report is due December 1st. We will have it done. We are working very hard on this. Our charge has been to review public record laws and whether or not they should apply to the legislature, the governor's office, and the judiciary. And so we have had 5 hearings where we've solicited input from many organizations that were spelled out specifically in the legislation that created this commission, as well as the public. We are working through all of that testimony right now. We've also talked to constitutional lawyers and others to make sure we understand the parameters we can work within per the Massachusetts Constitution. So this has been a very large undertaking. My co-chair, Senator Timilty, has been very active. We've both been very active in this. We've had meetings in the State House as well as outside the State House. And I feel that we are doing our due diligence.
Thank you. And can you tell us, please, what cultural changes, if any, do you see are needed in the state legislature? And what actions will you take to help achieve these changes?
Well, I think one of the obvious ones that we need to continue to work on is getting more women in office. And the culture is, age old. We have the longest operating constitution in the world. This government was created by John Adams and a lot of other men. And we know women approach issues differently. Currently, we're about 25% of the legislature. I think that is way too low. We're 52% of the Massachusetts population, and if we're truly going to be representational, then we need to have more women in office. I would also say that we have worked very hard, and I know Senator Eldridge brought up some of these areas. We have worked very hard since I came into the legislature to create more transparency. The idea of the smoky back room is dead, and that is really, really important. The work that we do needs to be done in front of the public. We need to be held accountable by the public. I think that there are tools that individuals have been using, such as I have been very active on social media, making sure people know where I am, what I'm working on. I think we need to do more.
Thank you. We'll just wait for that phone to silence. Maybe it will. Okay. Representative Benson, what, if anything, would you change about how the state funds education? And what results would you seek to achieve with these changes?
Well, the whole reason I ran for state representative is because I was a school committee member and a parent. I have 3 children, went through the public schools. They have now all graduated. And I ran because I saw the inequities, I saw the struggles that towns had with the state in developing plans. And I thought, you know, I should be able to make a difference here. So there's a few things. One is I have filed a bill repeatedly, which came actually out of going door to door here in Acton to change how we fund special education for our most needy students. And this is really getting into the weeds, but I'm kind of that kind of person. So the way we fund special education is a reimbursement to school districts. The problem is we have some students that never go to school, quite frankly, in their district community. They need out-of-district placements. And the impact that that can have on a school district is great. It can also have a huge impact on the family. And when I went door to door and heard from a family who had recently moved to Acton, she said, people shun us on the soccer field because they know we moved in and they know that my child, his education is costing a lot of money for the town. We can do better. So my proposal is simple. Those students who are identified in early intervention as needing a lot of intervention will receive funding directly from the state. It doesn't have to filter through the local school districts, and that way it's more consistent for the families, and it doesn't force school districts to find money mid-year, potentially when a student moves in.
Thank you. You mentioned you filed repeatedly, and it hasn't gotten anywhere. So I want to ask you a follow-up to that.
Mm-hmm.
What changes need to happen in the legislature so that bills that you care about have a better chance of reaching passage?
Well, my bill has been included in several bills coming out of the House. Unfortunately, when it gets to the next level, whether it be conference committee through the Senate, it gets dropped. So I have been building support. In the last, I would say, two to three sessions, I have many colleagues who have heard from their communities, please sign on to this bill. And so the House has been supportive of this piece of legislation. Unfortunately, it hasn't had a strong advocate in the Senate, so we need to work there to keep the ball rolling.
Thank you. What legislation would you push for or support to increase the number of middle-class wage jobs in this district?
Well, first thing I think I have to bring up is the fact that we have increased the minimum wage. And that is something that I felt very passionately about, having not only worked those jobs myself, but many of my family. And if we want people to be able to be self-sufficient, we need to make sure they're making a wage they can live on. So I think that's a minimum, right? So moving forward, I'm working a lot with manufacturers in my district because this district and North Central Massachusetts has a large number of high-tech manufacturing jobs. Devon's is also in my district. And we have an aging workforce, so we need more people looking at technical schools and community college in order to gain the skills to move there. I served 3 years on the Massachusetts Workforce Investment Board, where we studied these pipelines pretty significantly and brought our tech schools together to look at filling those gaps. And so, you know, college isn't for every single student, and we have lots of jobs that require specialized skills. So we have to make sure that students understand, you know, what those opportunities are and how great they can be for their families. And unfortunately, I think too many of us have a very old-fashioned idea of what manufacturing is.
Okay. Another topic that was raised. What actions should the state legislature take to reduce the number of natural gas leaks?
Well, that's a great question. I think, first of all, we don't need to build more pipelines. So I think we need to take that off the table. Secondly, we developed a system, and Lori Ehrlich was actually a big proponent and started the ball on this, was to be able to have a system to grade gas leaks and make sure that they are being addressed. And so we had grade 1, 2, and 3. We made sure that the worst were taken care of. Now we're getting down into those lower level gas leaks. And I think the system is working. The problem is we need more focus, and we need to dig down deeper and figure out why are we gaining these leaks and what is the infrastructure improvement that's needed. Obviously, we need to get off of fossil fuels. Several people mentioned carbon pricing. I filed the carbon pricing bill. That's my bill. And it is probably the most aggressive and progressive way to address our energy needs into the future and to make sure that we are reducing reliance on those fossil fuels.
Thank you. What bills would you sponsor and push for regarding transportation to help your constituents?
Well, this is an ongoing, and oftentimes it ends up being more about budget items than pure legislation. We have been able to, and the regional delegation has worked together in order to advocate for new MBTA stations, a reverse commute on the MBTA. We have upgraded switches and tracks to make sure the Fitchburg rail line from Fitchburg to Boston is in under an hour. We need to work on reliability. That's a big problem. I recently sent a letter to the MBTA to complain about the reliability issues and to point out some specific areas that needed to be improved. And after that, the reliability increased from 70% to 89% because I helped them be able to focus in on the areas that needed improvement. But we need to do more. Air train station needs an upgrade. Shirley train station needs an upgrade. We need to get more access, and we need to expand the shuttle service that has been so successful here in Acton and use that as a model around the state.
Finally, state voters approved the 2016 ballot question legalizing marijuana. What should the legislature do now to ensure that the ballot initiative is equitably implemented in a timely way?
So I think we got a lot of information on that issue tonight. I will say that a good friend of mine is now one of the cannabis commissioners, and I talk to her pretty regularly on this. And the fact is that when the legislature went in and delayed implementation and improved the law and opened up a regulatory process around this, there are certainly areas that need improvement. And so I think the most important thing we can do is, as these licenses are starting to go out, as they're developing an enforcement and inspection system, we need to be working in close consultation with the commission to find out what they need and are there areas of the law that need to be changed.
Thank you. This is your final question.
Wow.
It was mentioned earlier in the evening that Massachusetts has a rather poor rate of uncontested elections. Now, I know this may not necessarily be to your benefit, but it is for democracy's sake. What can the Commonwealth and you do to encourage more contested elections in this state?
Well, as you can imagine, I have no control over that myself, and so there's a few things I think we need to do, and I have been working to do to make that happen. One is I have been going out around my district and to groups across the Commonwealth to talk about civic engagement, to talk about what the process is for running for office, and to train people to understand the legislative process so it becomes more realistic and understandable and attainable for people. I think that's really important. I support civics education. I think that's something that's been missing in our schools for a very long time, and I have enjoyed over the years going in and speaking to high schools and middle schools about being civically involved, voting, and yes, running for office. I have tried to do my part in asking people to run for office and encouraging, especially women, to run for office. And I do think we need to change the way we fund campaigns. I think that's very off-putting. I personally hate fundraising. I think it's the worst part of my job, and I would love to see publicly financed campaigns. And I think that would level the playing field and make it much more attainable for more people to run.
Thank you so much, and I will just say the League of Women Voters also feels very strongly on these issues and getting more women to run as well. So thank you so much for those comments. We would like to conclude with your 1-minute closing statement.
Well, I guess I could rebut myself, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. I will say, I have worked hard to try to build consensus, and that's just the kind of person I am. I come out of local office. I was a school committee person. I served as a liaison to the Finance Committee and the Charter Review Committee and the Capital Planning Committee. So I understand how towns run, and I understand the need to work with everybody. And I try to bring that to the legislature. All too familiar these days is this very antagonistic team approach of us versus them. And I think that is extremely toxic for our democracy. So yes, I happily work with my Republican colleagues. And I know for some of you that is maybe not a good thing, but they were elected to serve just as I was. And I think it's really important to build bridges. We've been able to pass great things together, as it should be. So I would like to continue with that work. I look forward to it, and I am so grateful for all of your support over the years and for letting me come and talk to you.
Thank you so much. I would also like to add the League's great gratitude to the volunteers, to ActonTV for filming this event, and to all of you for sticking with it through all 3 of our forums merged together. And what day are we going out to vote?
November 6th.
November 6th, excellent. What?
Oh, early voting is Monday. Starts
Early
on Monday.
voting, I was about to get to that. Early voting starting Monday, October 22nd, ending November 2nd. And we've got cards in the back for anyone who wants to know, oh, should I maybe absentee vote? So to find out more about our nonpartisan information about all the candidates, the ballot questions, League has strong positions on 2 and 3, issues that we study first before we take positions. We remain nonpartisan and take no positions on candidates. You want to find out more about when and where to vote, if you've moved, any of that, please visit informedvoterma.org, our own really fabulous online guide led by Judy, your voters chair. Thank you all so very much for coming.